When people lead with their creativity, they generate purpose and meaning in their work, and they consistently drive business value. I'm Dr. Natalie Nixon, and I change lives with ideas. I'm a creativity strategist, the president of Figure 8 Thinking, a global keynote speaker, and the author of the award-winning book, The Creativity Leap. I advise leaders on transformation by applying wonder and rigor to amplify their business value. And I do that in two ways, through the lenses of creativity and foresight. Some of the questions that my clients have would be, what's the business that we should be in versus the business that we've been churning in? And how do we figure out our meaning and our purpose? There are two types of experiences I offer: keynote speaking and advisory services. I'm a global keynote speaker, and I'm often hired by CHROs, chief strategy officers, and chief innovation officers, as well as event planners to deliver a keynote at your next event. I also offer strategic advisory sessions, both one-on-one as well as Foresight Studios for your teams. Nothing makes me happier than when my clients get those aha moments where they self-identify as creative and they understand that creativity is actually the essential engine for innovation. That's the power of applying creativity, toggling between wonder and rigor to solve problems. I help you shift your paradigm to amplify your business value. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us today for the WonderRigor podcast that we are hosting on LinkedIn. And I'm really excited to be joined today by Vicky Smith. Vicky Smith is a systems and data consultant and expert. And I've actually used Vicky Smith's services, so I can speak from personal experience that she's really helped me to streamline and make a lot of sense of all of the matter and data that's part of my daily business. So Vicky, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm excited to be here.
And did I get that right? How do you like to describe yourself and your expertise?
Yeah, absolutely. I think systems and data, it used to be systems and automation, but as I move more into the data space, like creating data and dashboards, that part is really what excites me. So systems and data for sure.
Okay, good. I think there's definitely something pretty magical about seeing one's work come alive in a very clear and visible and visual way, which is something I've experienced of late. But let's broaden out beyond me and the work we've done together for Figure 8 Thinking. But would you share a few examples, one or two examples, of how you've helped solopreneurs and women-owned businesses to streamline their processes through automation?
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of the women that I work with are in like the coaching space, and there's been a transition of going from one-on-one coaching services to group coaching programs. And with that transition, there's a need to create more streamlined processes and automation in their business to handle the volume of like a growing business and handling more clients. So primarily I'll help them with streamlining first their application process, right? Making sure they're getting the right people in. Maybe there's an automated qualification or disqualification that happens. And then also like making sure that their sales process, and I know you can attest to this, right? Like that proposal, contract, invoicing piece that can be so manual at times, really helping them to streamline that process where essentially it can happen in one click, right?
Right.
And then moving into even offboarding, right? That's an important piece so that we can close out the project, gather feedback and testimonials, and really doing that consistently, right? And so those are kind of the main processes that I typically assist my clients with streamlining.
I think that's a really great example, the proposal writing and development. I think as you fine tune your business, you kind of know the biggest pieces of information that you want to make sure are covered in all of your proposals, and to be able to work more efficiently because it's streamlined.
is so valuable. You help to make it a much more organic process when in fact it's in many ways become automated, and then there's always ways to intervene and customize
Exactly.
if necessary.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so so in your experience, what are some of the common challenges that entrepreneurs are facing when it comes to implementing efficient systems, and how do you help them overcome those challenges?
I think what happens is that there's a lot of information overload. Let's call it that, right? So you're hearing about this software, you're hearing about this tool, there you're being told by this coach you should do it this way, right? So there's a lot of conflicting information. So a lot of the times when they come to me, they're just looking for clarity, right? And that's always the first step. You know, that mapping process that I love so much, like creating a visual of what the business looks like essentially on the back end. So I think that's challenge number one, is just getting clarity, right? And making a decision as to how they want to run their business, right? Like once we have it on paper and we're implementing it, right, it kind of it solidifies it for them.
Right.
And another challenge again is that their business is growing, right? And they want their client experience to match, right, the level and like the cost of their programs and services. Because a lot of the times we're talking about like high ticket services, you know,
Mhm.
4 or 5 figures, and they want their systems and the experience that their clients go through to match that. And sometimes, you know, in the beginning, when it's piecemeal and manual, that client experience, it leaves much to be desired.
Yes, yes. Well, I definitely, the overwhelm is real when you're given so many options and so many choices. And maybe if you want, I don't know if you feel comfortable with this, but if you want to share some of the platforms that you have found over time to be helpful, that would be great. And I also want to take this time to say, if there's anyone who's joining us live, if you have questions for Vicky, please plop them into the comment section, and we'll be sure to get to those questions. And Vicky, I also want to give you a chance to ask me any questions because we want to make this conversational. But before you do, what are some of the applications and platforms that you have found over time and your experience do help to streamline and help to make work feel a bit more joyful and more efficient at the same
Yes, absolutely. Um, Early on in when I started doing implementations for other women business owners, one of the tools we used frequently is Dubsado. Dubsado is a CRM that allows you, it has a lot of features, right? You're able to schedule appointments, you're able to do that contract proposal invoice process like totally seamlessly. That's a tool that I do recommend for in certain scenarios, right? But a lot of the times it's so customizable, you can get it to work for your business.
Mhm.
Um, Now more so, I'm really um, Airtable is a tool that I feel like every business needs, right? Airtable is essentially a database platform, but it allows you to collect, really centralize all of the data from all of your different applications into one place. And it
Mhm.
really makes it like meaningful and insightful, right? And you can create these dashboards that really tell you where your business really is, right? And I feel
Mhm.
like a lot of times as business owners, we don't have that insight. It's kind of a guess, or you have to go here to gather that, go here to gather that, and then make an evaluation. But when you centralize your data inside of a tool like Airtable, everything becomes clear, right? And then
Yes.
like, you know, speaking of creativity, right, like it's you get these ideas like, oh, if I had this information, then I could know that I can do this, right? Once you start that process, it snowballs actually.
Yeah, it snowballs in a good way. And this also reminds me of the expression that we value what we measure and we measure what we value. And maybe an extension of that is we measure what we can see. And when we can see it, we measure it a lot more carefully and in a much more helpful way. So it just adds value overall. So I would definitely agree with that. So do you have a question for me so we can have kind of a back and forth conversation?
I do. Like I kind of like have kind of like a three-part question, right? Like
Okay.
I'm really curious to hear like from your perspective, like what were some of your challenges, right? Like what was it that initially drove you to seek my assistance?
I think that it was a few things. One, I was definitely feeling I didn't have the words for it, but the word for it was I needed to systematize my selling process, my onboarding process, because I was using Google Word docs, right? And I had a template, but it wasn't always the fastest way to do it. It wasn't always, I don't think I could have upped my game a lot better in terms of visuals and graphics to make the proposal look a bit more brand consistent with figure eight thinking and with how I wanted to present myself. So I wanted systems, I needed systems. I also wanted to professionalize the way I was selling out to clients, and to your point, to clients who were in making an investment by working with me. And I wanted the proposal to reflect that. And I also liked, you and I have used Dubsado and we've used Airtable. I also liked that there were kind of these nudges that we could build in that would help make the process a bit more seamless. And then efficiencies, it just helped to offload a cognitive part of my brain that I had to
Hmm.
focus less on so that I could focus more on the big picture thinking, which and the synchronicity and synthesis of ideas, which I love so much. So those were a few of the challenges that I had when we started working together.
Awesome. And so with now that you have that onboarding, that sales process streamlined, that beautiful proposal, right? That came along so nicely. And then moving into the Airtable like implementation, have you gained any like insights or ahas once we've kind of again like centralized and organized that data?
Yes, and I mean, so Airtable, I was reticent initially to use it because I didn't want one more app, one more platform to be using. I know that you and I had tried to work with Notion, and Notion is great for some things, but it wasn't as good for me to get those, to visualize the revenue data and to be able to do a bit more forecasting. So the gains I've had with Airtable have been to be able to track things pretty seamlessly. I think we've synchronized things from Dubsado, but I don't, it seems like I'm going straight to Airtable a lot more. And I also have appreciated the dashboard. In some ways, it's helping me understand the things that I thought 3 months ago were going to matter don't matter as much. For example, the
Mm.
questions and the types of data that I thought I would need to keep track of, they're not my go-to as much as I thought they would. And there's other things that are emerging. So I sent you an email earlier about other things that
Right.
I was some help with synchronizing. I'm realizing that that will just help to streamline the work, for example, I do with my bookkeeper so that they can understand more easily what has already happened in terms of client work and what's in queue. So the visualization has helped me to understand even more how to edit further and to be surprised by the things that I think that I need to understand. And it's definitely just a nice, I don't check it every single day, but I do check it at least twice a week. And twice a week is enough for me to
Hmm.
feel like I'm on top of the work, and it gets me excited. And the data visualization piece is really quite nice as well.
Yes. I really think that data and dashboard piece it becomes like a game changer once you hit a certain phase in your business because it really and I heard a coach say this once, it like gives you the data to inform your intuition, right?
Oh,
And
wow. I
we
love,
talk a
say that
lot
again.
about
Say that one more
it
time.
gives
That was
you the
awesome.
data to inform your intuition, right? So
Nice.
not so much data informed decisions, right? But data informed intuition, right? Because it's like we
Mhm.
always have an idea, we always have a sense of where we want our business to go, but then to have the data to support it, it just
Yes,
gives you that confidence, right? And
yes.
I really like that perspective about the data piece.
I do too. I often say that intuition is data, right? Intuition is another type of data. So to to add value to our intuitive data based on information that is coming from digital format is pretty cool, right? It's just adding value, which I think is actually a lot of the conversation people are having around AI is in automation and algorithms is how can it, at least the questions I have are how can this type of data and technology help to make us amplify what makes us human? How can this data and technology help us just to use our brain in more generative ways if basic tasks are being taken over? I just have added into our private chat, Vicky and Morgan, who is my project manager, she can share this with everyone. There's a great website that I really love. It's called Information is Beautiful. And it's now I'm forgetting the gentleman who is the founder of Information is Beautiful. So please excuse me, maybe Morgan can find that. We'll share that information. But I was able to attend an Information is Beautiful day long workshop about, it was probably about 8 years ago now, and it was so inspiring just to see the ways that he goes about thinking about, and David McCandless, thank you, an English gentleman, a British gentleman, the ways that he goes about thinking about how to visualize data. Because I think sometimes data feels overwhelming if we only think of it in terms of Excel charts, right? But the
Right.
truth is, as humans, we're hardwired to be visual. So if we can visualize in different shapes and colors and texture, and all of a sudden the data becomes more accessible. What do you think about that? The power of being able to visualize the data.
I think definitely that is where, especially if it's in a format that is eye-catching, like you said, right? Like I'm looking at some of these charts on Information is Beautiful, and it's like, oh, I want to dive in further, right? Like it gets you excited, right?
Yes.
It absolutely. I think it's essential. It's an essential piece to
Yeah.
running a business.
Yeah. It is. It is. So let me ask you another question, which is, could you provide some insights into how finding the right automations can improve business flow and contribute to the success of solopreneurs and women-owned businesses?
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. One of the first thing, and I think I said this, right? I because I think it's such an important and beneficial tool, is that mapping process. And what I mean by that is mapping out like what are all of the touch points, the software, the decisions, right, that need to be made in your flow. And once you've done that, the automations just present themselves. Right? It's like, oh, clearly, like this doesn't need to be a human doing this. We have, you know, the data, right, to support this through automation.
Can I just interrupt you? Can you just give us an example, a small example of when someone has an aha moment and realizes that we don't need a human to do this, we could have an automation help us to do this better?
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the things is like the application and qualification process. A lot of my clients want to qualify their leads to make sure they're a good fit. And a lot of the times there's one or two questions that will tell you everything you need to know, right? So if there was an automation that says, if this person answered this question this way, let's wait an hour, right? We don't want it to be too automated, right? Wait an hour and then send them this particular email because they don't qualify, right? Or
Mm,
maybe we send them an email for some additional information, right? And that's a piece that, you know, that can take away a lot of the manual work, right? Like the actually going through and reviewing every single one, especially once you start working with volume. So
mhm.
that's one that I feel like can definitely save some time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Mhm.
Why don't you ask me another one of your questions, and then I think we're going to get into the ways that you find wonder and you find rigor in your work. But do you have another question you want to pose to me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious now that, okay, we've kind of worked on streamlining, we've worked on data collection. Like, what do you see, like, for this next phase of business that you're going into, right? Like, do you foresee like any changes or how do I want to phrase this? Any specific areas that you would like to further streamline in your
Mm.
business?
So I think the first part of working with systems automation was kind of through my sales process. It was through ways that I was touching my clients initially, how I would follow up after inquiries, how I would make sure that they had a full picture of what I could offer to them in a way that was organic, in a way that was brand consistent. The next level for me is to really use automation to be able to have a much more coherent handling of my finances, of my financial model, of the cadence of my revenue, to be able to begin to think of new ideas because of what the analysis and the data is showing me about what who are. So I'm a global speaker. I do high-end strategic advisory work, things that I call foresight studios. So for me to be able to start to see patterns about the cadence throughout the year, the average fees, the sectors who tend to inquire about me, the lead times, which in speaking, there's not always a rhyme or reason, but I think that I can begin to see certain patterns. And so that's what is exciting to me about this next stage of using this sort of technology, is to be able to feel a lot more confident about my revenue model, about my cost model, about um, how I can really feel confident, have a handle on the financial structure of my business in a way that I think, 2 years ago, it was just like, okay, great, that happened. Okay, now to the next. Okay, great, that happened. On to the next. And instead of really sitting with it, looking at it, exploring it, on a regular basis. And I think for me, that means, so I said I'll look at my dashboard maybe twice a week, but to do really kind of a deep dive of my financial model, I think I'll be in a position to be able to do that once a quarter, which is a lot more than I was doing a year ago, and certainly a lot more than I was doing 2 years ago.
Absolutely. Definitely. And I love that you said that, like, that confidence, right? And the more, I'm not information overload, but having the right information available to you is essential.
It is essential. It is essential. And I think anyone who's a solopreneur, a smaller scale business, needs to be gentle with themselves, because we don't figure this out immediately. I'm in year 6 of building Figure Eight Thinking. We're actually celebrating our 6-year
Mhm.
anniversary starting this month of June. And it takes a while for you to understand, what do your clients need? What's the best way to
Right.
deliver value to your clients? How do you find it easier to track the state of your business? What tools are you comfortable with? What are you uncomfortable with? We all have our own personalities and our own phobias and our own ways that we want to use time. And so it takes a minute before you really have mastered that. So I think we all have to be experimental. It's okay to experiment with something and then decide, this is not for me. This doesn't work as well as I had hoped it would. And then to be open to advice and be open to new ways of working.
Yes.
So, my final 2 questions for you, Vicky, are: the first is, how do you try to build wonder into your work? Because I think maybe sometimes people might think, oh, this is a woman who spends a lot of time with Excel sheets and data and charts, and of course, I know that requires a lot of wonder. But I would like you to share, how do you like to build wonder into your work?
I think one of the things that's big for me is, although there are tools that I will recommend more frequently than others, I'm really open to what tools are out there, what are the possibilities, right? And I think that looking at it from process, like a process first perspective, it leaves you open to say, oh, we could do this, we can use this tool for that, right? Rather than selecting a tool um, and then kind of boxing ourselves in and then trying to figure out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
I love the you know, the curiosity of like, oh, what if we did this? What if we plug this tool in here, right? And just making it really unique to you and your business. I think that's an important piece rather than, again, like there are, you know, there are some systems consultants out there that it's like, well, no, we're using this tool, right? We're using this tool every time and we'll figure out how to get it to work for your business. But I kind of do it the opposite way. And I think it's a lot more fun, right? There are a lot more possibilities in just like leaving the tool out at first and then just bringing in the right set of tools and applications to make it work.
I love that you're asking a lot of what if questions, a lot of I wonder what would happen in XYZ situation. That's definitely infusing your work with a lot of wonder. Okay, awesome. What about ways that you infuse and build in rigor into your work? And rigor is about discipline and focus and skill mastery and time on task. How about that?
I think my business is, I didn't realize it till I thought about this question, is my business is built on rigor. Because initially when I started my business, all I did was VIP days, right? And VIP days are one full day of intense focus, right? And really like no distractions, getting, focusing on a particular task or a particular set of tasks or implementations. And as my business has evolved, I still find that to be like a central part of my business is maybe it's 3 days now, right? But it's still 3 days of super intense focus. And
Mhm.
I believe that's my business is built on rigor.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've been through one of your VIP days and also requires a lot of questions, a lot of question framing, very specific questions to help you uncover the need of the client. So it's some wonder and it's some rigor
Yeah.
as well. So I definitely think it's a creative endeavor. Absolutely. According
Yeah.
to the way I define creativity, it
Yeah.
is a creative endeavor. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we've come to the end of our time together. Would you just share, Vicky, where people can find out more about your work and what you do in case they want to hire you?
Absolutely. You can find me on vickysmith.co. Sorry, that's my website, vickysmith.co. Thank you. And also primarily on LinkedIn at Vicky Smith Co. In/slash Vicky Smith Co. as well. That's primarily where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Vicky, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing all these gems of knowledge. And again, if anyone wants to contact Vicky, just go to vickysmith.co or contact her here on LinkedIn. And please share this broadcast because there's a lot of great information. Thank you so much, Vicky.
Thank you, Natalie. This was so much fun.
You're welcome. Bye.